Macmillan Audio presents The Way That Leads Among the Lost, Life, Death, and Hope in Mexico City's Anexos by Angela Garcia. Read for you by Inés del Castillo. For my mother. Vivos estamos. Los que no nos hemos ido. Vivos. Aquí. Sara Uribe, Antígona González. Prologue. At 6 o'clock in the morning on July 19th, 2014, Hortensia opened the door of the apartment she shared with her teenage son, Daniel. They lived on the second floor of a century-old tenement in Mexico City's historic center. The three-story building was composed of small two-room units that faced an open-air courtyard on the ground floor. Hortensia could hear her neighbors in the courtyard, preparing food and setting up shop for another day's work. Two men stood at the threshold of her door. She'd never seen them before, and didn't know their names, but she knew they were the servers she'd called to deliver Daniel to an anexo, an annex, the name for a clandestine low-cost drug recovery center. Anexos are controversial for their illegality and use of violence, but for many Mexican mothers, they are the only way to ensure a child's safety from the danger that surrounds the narco war. The anexo Hortensia called upon had been recommended by a neighbor, a mother with a son very much like her own. Aimless, worryingly depressed, using drugs and selling them too. Descontrolado, out of control, was how Hortensia described Daniel to me. At her wit's end, and afraid for his life, Hortensia took the number her neighbor gave her, and the pickup was quickly arranged. The men pushed past Hortensia and headed straight for Daniel, who was passed out on a recliner in front of the television. Hortensia closed the door and rushed to her son's side, unsure if she should help the men wrestle Daniel awake or protect him from them. They told me to get out of the way, she recalled as we sat together in her cramped but orderly home. It was just a few weeks after the house call. The harrowing story Hortensia told me would take years for me to fully understand. I asked very few questions and listened quietly while Hortensia spoke. I sat right here, she said, tapping the sofa that was also Daniel's bed. One of the servers had ordered her to turn up the volume on the television. Hortensia reenacted the scene, pointing the remote control to turn the television on. A talk show lit up the screen, brightening the room. She increased the volume to its maximum level, just as she was ordered to do that morning. Dialogue blared indecipherably and filled the room with confusion. Hortensia turned off the TV and fixed her eyes on the empty recliner. The servers worked in brusque, well-practiced movements. One yanked Daniel out of the chair and tossed him to the floor. The other kicked him. As she recalled that morning, Hortensia took deep breaths and swept aside the dark bangs that kept falling in front of her eyes, like curtains repeatedly opening and closing on a difficult scene. She described one of the men hovering inches from Daniel's face, spewing insults at him. I could hear the terrible, terrible things he said. Even with the TV on, I heard everything. The other one? He kicked and kicked my son. Hortensia pleaded with the men to stop hurting Daniel, but they kept on. I told them I made a mistake. I didn't ask for this. I told them to let go of Daniel and I'd still pay the fee. Unable to take it anymore, Hortensia leaped off the sofa and grabbed the arm of one of the men. He turned to her and told her to back off. "You want this to work, señora? You want him to live?" That's what he said. Hortensia realized then that she had subjected Daniel and herself to a violence she could not undo. Hortensia sat back down and forced herself to watch what happened next, in case I needed to file a report. But she didn't know whom she would submit a report to. She knew of no trusted authorities or organizations that might help.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?